All right. Okay. Thank you so much. First of all, I appreciate you letting us do the observation in your room.
Thank you.
So we're just going to do a quick 15-minute debrief. I just have some notes just to focus me. So we'll start. What do you feel was successful in the lesson?
Well, after you guys left, I personally, when you ladies were in here, I was told that I would have did so differently.
Okay.
Because I feel like I asked them what a quilt was, and then they said a carpet at first. And I said, well, it's a blanket. But I didn't go into detail about it. I didn't say it was a blanket that had shapes and patterns and all that. I kind of wanted to see what they were going to come up with.
Yeah.
And they weren't as descriptive as I thought they were going to be.
Okay.
I could have led the discussion better to get more out of them, to be more on point. After you guys left, when they went to their centers, they did really great at creating patterns. So I would say that was something that was successful that came out of it. And we're continuing to create patterns, and I feel like each time we do it, it just gets better and better. And then we took their patterns and we put them together like a quilt, so they were able to describe in more detail. I feel like when it's their own and it's right in front of them versus the board.
Yeah.
I tried to do the papers in front of them, and I just lost.
No, that was good. That was a good pivot.
Lost all. I wanted to try it and see.
Yeah.
Because I know I talked with the other teachers in kindergarten, and they said they were going to try it. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. That was a good pivot. And I think it worked when they were talking with their partner to have it in front of them. Yes. But once it went to you, I think that was a perfectly fine pivot. So you actually had my next question. So to talk about the centers, in their centers they were making the patterns. How do you know they were successful?
Well, so I had a group back here, and I modified per each group.
Okay.
My highest group, they were able to actually look at. I pulled the worksheets from their books.
Okay.
So they're back here with me, and for my high group, they were able to count independently all of the blocks that were asked. And they were able to create the patterns.
Okay.
As far as my lower group, I created a slideshow, and we did one shape at a time, and we pulled those together one at a time.
Okay.
So they were all successful in their own level. I also took a minute because I didn't have anyone else in here. No, Miss Santana was in here. But usually what I will do is either Miss Santana and I will talk about the other findings when she's going around observing. Or if I'm by myself, which is sometimes, I will get them started. I will give them time to create, and that will give me a good 2 to 3 minutes to go on and make sure that each group is on task. Yeah. And doing what they're, And I could hear, too, the language being used, and it was a lot better than the whole group. I did not think that was successful.
Yeah, and that's fine. So that actually kind of goes into we're aligned in our thinking. So when we checked in before the lesson, you had some goals for the kids, learning about the shapes, identifying shapes, creating the patterns, identifying them. We talked about how they were successful with the exit ticket from the curriculum. When you started your lesson, how did you communicate these things to the kids?
So I used the slideshow that is from the curriculum.
Did you do that with your groups?
With this group, I had a small I can.
Okay.
And I glued it on paper. So I didn't use the one from the slideshow. It was the same wording, though. And I think it was before you ladies came in. We discussed partner work, or who was with, because they switched partners.
Yes, I noticed that.
Yeah, they had new partners. So I made sure, it was right before you both came in. They got next to their partner, so there wasn't a lot of moving around during the actual lesson. And there was the very first slide of the slideshow is always let's, and then it says what we're going to do. Then when I work with me, though, I like to use I can. So we switched it. But it's the same exact wording. It's let's work with pattern blocks. Let's build with pattern blocks, and then so they know what we're going to be doing for the day.
Yeah. So let's dive into feedback. So you said you could have set it up.
I could have set it up more. I feel like it was really drawn out, too long at the carpet. And I feel like I didn't get my purpose.
you
I'll
read
tell you,
it read my mind.
takes,
So the feedback that I'm going to give you is I know the curriculum has that kind of stated as more of a free-flowing number talk, but if you had set the purpose,
absolutely,
even for that conversation, that would have sped up your pacing.
It was very drawn out.
Well, and I think it's because they weren't cued to think about shapes in the moment. They were cued to generally think about blankets. Even if you didn't model, just to say, all right, let's learn about shapes exactly like you said. A quilt has different shapes in it. Remember, we've been learning all about shapes. We pulled out shapes all around us.
Yes.
This quilt has shapes. What do you notice about the shapes? Because our goal today is to do X, Y, and Z, and be really just explicit with today. Our goal is this. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to do it with this quilt. That would have kind of cued them more, and that would have, I think, helped your pacing.
Yeah, I agree.
The other thing too, if just to kind of, we'll focus on the setting the purpose for the next time I come in, but just to kind of put on your radar too, something is your questioning. Like when Olivia mentioned that she sees squares, you could ask them probing questions. So how do you know it's a square? Okay. Once if you see that they're starting to latch on, and you did it at the very end, after you heard that they just were continuing to talk about the colors. At the very end, you said, "What do we see in the shapes? What patterns? What shapes do we see?" Yeah. If you had even moved that question up earlier, it would have just sped. And then helped with your pace. Okay. Otherwise, you set up a beautiful classroom culture. You, in that moment, you really honored students' responses. You intentionally called students that were a little more quiet. You gave everyone wait time. And so the positive is, while you didn't get the academic vocabulary, you set up an atmosphere where you prioritize honoring students' responses. Okay. And I think that's still positive. I think if we, just like you said, set your purpose up front, that'll...
And I knew right
that'll
away.
Speed up your pacing. Yeah,
absolutely.
So, if you would like, I'm more than gladly come back in. And maybe just, we can, see a little bit more math. I think your reading is really spot on. See some of that.
And math, we're trying to break it up. Just because it is a lot to do in one day. So, I've been trying to get centers in, but the way we're kind of gearing towards is do the lesson one day. And then the next day get into centers.
That's not a bad idea, because then you can, if you give them an exit slip, you can, instead of reading where you group them more long term, with the math you can group them daily. Yes. Just every lesson you can kind of see how they did it.
And that's what I did yesterday. I took one center out because